Welcome to In Focus with Eden Lane.
Later tonight, we'll join the Real Social Club for an advanced look at the 34th annual Starz Denver Film Festival. And we make our first visit to the Evergreen Players for their production of Brighton Beach Memoirs. But we begin with A Shared Experience in Art by RedLine and Ballet Nouveau Colorado. We meet Dawn Fay, the Associate Artistic Director, and her collaborator, Tom Guiton. So Ballet Nouveau Colorado has an established history of collaborating with a wide variety of creative people in Colorado. And this is the first time that we're seeing you collaborate with visual artists from RedLine. How did this even begin?
This began as the concept of Garrett Ammon, who is the artistic director and also my husband. And we had worked with visual artists in the past, but not specifically RedLine visual artists. And we decided we wanted to work with their resident artists, which is just a fabulous program that RedLine has developed to nurture the growth of artists and provide them with studio space. And so we went into it knowing that we had 5 choreographers, and we basically opened up the floor to anyone at RedLine Resident Artist Program or resource artists, opened it up to them, and we had a big meeting, and we kind of talked, and we passed around a computer because some of the choreographers were remote, so we Skyped them in and let them have conversations with everyone and took a lot of notes, and everyone kind of found each other through a very organic process.
So there's no formal system, you just let that happen organically?
Very much so.
And how did the two of you connect, Tom?
Well, Dawn has expressed interest in my work before, just things that I've been doing, particularly the wands, I think, as well as some of the other imagery. But we had a degree of sympathy, I thought, that was more than usual. So we just kind of gravitated toward each other, and it was a very natural and organic sort of development.
Tell me what you mean when you say the wands, for anybody who might not already know your work.
I've been doing some kind of eccentric little things that were based originally on Navajo sand paintings and the concept of the Navajo religion. And one of the ideas that was basic to me was that images get consumed and reused, recycled, and in their cosmology, the gods and goddesses can change values, colors, and association. So the kind of fluidity and plasticity of the symbology was important to me.
How do you capture that as a visual artist?
Part of it is the way you approach it and work with it. You cut and paste and manipulate it and cause accidents to happen that cause associations that you wouldn't normally have. So you constantly are changing as part of the process.
And what medium do you most often work in lately?
Well, lately I've been working with computer, scanning images, taking photographs, cutting them up, painting into them, scanning them back in. It's kind of like making a Japanese sword. You keep folding the stuff back into itself and beating on it until you get a good sharp piece of metal that you can use for something else.
Are you looking at his past work, or are you creating something new for this particular piece? How is that working?
We did a little of both, I think. I think the wands have always been fascinating to me. And I don't think they mean the same thing necessarily to both of us, but maybe they do now for you.
And that's okay though, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
it's completely part of that's what makes it a conversation. That's what makes it a collaboration and a discovery, because by taking this thing over here and putting it with this thing over here, you create something new. And that's kind of, that's what we're all about. So what happened for us was we entered into the conversation, and the wands were definitely one of the first things that we talked about, because I kind of expressed how I felt about them and why I loved them and why they scared me and all kinds of different things and what kind of emotions they evoked from me.
It's interesting you said that the wands in some ways scared you. That's often a very powerful way to begin creating.
Well, and I mean, I've seen Tom's work for years, and always they fascinated me, and there was something about them that was very, very eerie, very kind of, it evoked those things in me. I mean, I am superstitious by nature, so
a dancer who's superstitious.
I know, never heard of it, right? That. I know. How abnormal. But they kind of like always challenged me. Not like I would run away from them, but like they actually drew me in, but almost like something that was maybe not so good for you in an odd sort of way, but also on the other side of that, just so incredibly beautiful. So, you know, there's that incredible lure to them, and so very multifaceted.
Are these paintings that are representing these wands? Are they physical manifestations of the wands? Are they the set pieces? Tell me how this is working.
The wands, there are two larger wands that the dancer dances with. Sarah
like an
dances
implement?
with, like something you can hold in your hand, 3 or 4 feet. And then there are other wands that the image, just the image of the wand has been put on cloth for her to carry. So it's like a sack. And then some of the same imagery is on the chair that she uses as a prop too.
He built the chair.
Well, I took 3 chairs and made one, so I kind of kludged it all together. So it's kind of a collage too. It's very much the same kind of thing. I tried to, the processes should echo each other. That's part of the myth and superstition and magic is, you know, as this, so that.
Right.
It's that kind of thing.
Does that mirror the way you're constructing this piece as a choreographer?
The piece was constructed simultaneously with us talking. Like all of the elements came about, you know, because of conversation. Like the wands, I already knew were going to be in there. Those were one of the first things we talked about, and the size
So
of them.
there'd be physical wands for your dancers
physical
to
that she
interact.
is like holding and throwing on the floor, and like they're taking a licking. And
they keep on ticking.
Keep on ticking. Yes, yes. And then the chair kind of manifested itself because I needed something for her to interact with because it's
Tell
a
the
solo.
truth. You didn't like the chair that you have in the studio.
Well,
That's
I
what
hate that chair.
Okay, so you wanted a new chair, so you...
Well, but I wanted a chair that kind of encompassed all the things we had talked about, and so that's exactly what he did, though. Which it's kind of hard to envision this chair because he built it from 3 chairs, the structure of it, but which had to be very specific, light enough, short enough, not too big of a seat, blah
Strong
blah blah,
enough.
strong enough,
Right.
but also
major
needed
problem.
to look kind of like a little bit beaten up, maybe not very refined in its I'm not going to say primitive because it's not primitive, but then on the seat there's references to the wands and, you know, other art.
That goes back to kind of voodoo. We
Yeah.
use pretty much straight voodoo. She mentioned Obeah and voodoo, and so I
So he
kind of
painted
cut and
it.
pasted some of that together. You
But
know?
then there's like part of a tire on it. There's some fur. There's a parrot on one of the backs of the chair. There's a black cat on the bottom of the chair.
So how does
Looks
this
like it's hanging
inform?
on.
It does.
How does this inform your movement vocabulary for the piece?
Totally. I mean, totally. Everything has to have, that's because this is even more so, like, you called it props, but I don't call it props because they are,
Another character even.
they're other characters in the work. But the golden rule of props is if you can do the ballet without them, then you don't
you need them.
And so this goes even further because this doesn't exist without these elements. The work does not exist. It's not, you can't even like take the steps and have it make any sense without these other characters.
You can't.
You
Yeah.
can't.
And the name of the piece,
Like an onion.
Like an Onion. How does that relate to the process that you've gone through together?
All of the
Crying as you cut it up?
right, kind of a little bit, but all of
A few tears were shed, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a journey. It's a short journey, but it's definitely a journey. I mean, all of these elements are part of the dancer to start the ballet. Like Tom said, they're in a sack, and they're all her. Every single piece is all her. So she moves from one to the other, kind of going through one element of herself, good or bad, there's both. And then she, quote, defeats or discards that element. But then each time she goes through another element, it's another layer that gets peeled.
When you're working in a vernacular that's saluting or incorporating original peoples or Native American people's culture as someone who may not be from that culture, is that a challenge that that you have in being able to express that to an audience with legitimacy in any way?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, how much appropriation am I doing? And I think a lot of it is based on my feeling that if you can't tell a joke, a religious joke, in that religion, the religion's dead. So you have to keep using the religion over and over again. And for me, it's an homage. It's a way of saying these are important ideas and important concepts that need to be reused, incorporated, folded back into the greater culture.
I love that description, that folding it back into the greater culture. It harkens back to your description of your process, like building a samurai sword and the layers of that onion. This will be not the first time that Ballet Nouveau Colorado is performing in this space, but it's the first time you're doing a formal concert in the RedLine space at the beginning of Art Week. How did that inform or change? Because you're going to transplant this same work to a traditional theater space for a second run. Is that correct?
Correct.
Tell me about that.
Well, it's going to be very, very interesting because part of this is it's not going to be the same production at all. Because,
it can't be.
Well, but at RedLine, we're actually doing it in the round. So the stage is in the middle of the space, and then the audience is completely around.
Are they seated or are they
They're
engaged
seated.
in some way?
They're seated. They're all seated and all the way around the stage. So all of the works have been constructed with that in mind, but then there's also a whole changeover that's going to happen within 1 week when we go to our second
Only 1 week
theater.
in between.
1 week in between. But it is going to be fascinating to see the work in both spaces. And there are a lot of people who are specifically choreographing a lot of it to be this way at RedLine, but then at the other theater, we're going to do it this way.
How many other pairs of choreographers and artists?
There's 4 other choreographers and actually 5 other artists because one of the choreographers is working with 2 artists. So, yeah, very exciting.
So all in time for Art Week, and then the following week we get to come and see Ballet Nouveau Colorado collaborate with some really wonderful and fascinating visual artists here in Colorado. And I'm delighted that you took time to come and explain it to us today, so we have a little hint. Maybe all get to come and see it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Come see us.
For ticket information, visit bncdance.com for RedLine plus BNC, a shared experience in art. They're almost ready to roll out the red carpet for the Starz Denver Film Festival, and we'll bring you there again, this time as one of the official media partners. To help you plan for the festival, we sent our cameras to the Real Social Club event to get the coming attractions from Matthew Campbell.
The Real Social Club is Denver's newest young members patron group. It's founded within the Denver Film Society, and it's really to get out young, fresh audiences to experience the film festival and our year-round programming. Also, a lot of great events that we have throughout the year, a lot of parties, a lot of fun things for people to mingle with one another. But real specifically, what we're doing tonight is promoting the Real Social Club package, which is a part of the Real Social Club for members and non-members alike. What you get with this package, you get access to parties that otherwise you would not get access to, a lot of great film screenings and special red carpet events, including opening night, which is like crazy. You get an upgrade, which will be for closing night, which is The Artist, really big Cannes favorite. The main actress lead won Best Actress in Cannes for that. Like Crazy was the audience award pick in Sundance. So a lot of really great films, and in addition to that, private screening of Martha, Mary, May, Marlene, which is also a Sundance favorite. Jeff Who Lives at Home, big new film by the Duplass brothers, and stars Jason Segel and Susan Sarandon. Then a whole slate of other great films that really you'd never be able to see otherwise. Special films, indie films, international films, documentaries that really the only chance to be able to check out this great programming is at the festival, and it's the best way to do it. Last year, it was only around 212 films, which was still our biggest slate of films yet. This year, we upped the ante to around 280 films. So we have a huge amount of programming. We're literally rivaling some festivals like Toronto. It's just a massive amount of films, parties, panels, different programs, special events that we have going all 12 days long. So it's going to be a huge event from November 2nd through the 13th, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Within the Real Social Club package, which is really special to my heart because I help program that, a couple of my top films would be American Animal, really awesome film, The Color Wheel, Green, also The Green Wave, kind of confusing, similar name, but very different films. Outside of the Real Social Club, we have a lot of really great films. Aorang is part of our South Korean focus. We have an international focus each year, and South Korea is at this year. Really awesome documentary. Also Bad Fever, one of my favorites, big hit out of Sundance, American indie film. Really interesting stuff. I could go on, but those are some of the top.
Screenings are selling out already. Visit denverfilm.org to get your tickets. The Evergreen Players just returned from presenting their acclaimed production, Parallel Lives, in Germany. Their next production, Brighton Beach Memoirs. Later we'll meet the cast, but we begin with the director of this Neil Simon classic.
We've seen the kind of success that can come out of the Evergreen Players by talking to them about their production of Private Lives, but the next production here is Brighton Beach Memoirs, one of my favorite comedies. How did you select that?
That's one of my favorite comedies too, and the reason I selected it was I thought it would be a perfect showcase here with the Evergreen Players. I'm originally from Brooklyn, and although I wasn't born in 1938, I was born slightly after that.
And you have an Italian last name.
And I have an Italian last name, which is very much like having a Jewish last name when you grow up in Brooklyn. And it's a show that means a lot to me because it's about family, and family means a lot to me.
Well, how long have you been working on this play? How long has the rehearsal process been?
We started towards the end of August, and we usually rehearse 2 or 3 nights a week, and then on the weekend, one morning. We've been doing Saturday mornings.
So it takes a lot of dedication for people to participate in community theater.
Exactly, and a lot of time management. Because like I said, the adults and myself, we have full-time jobs, and then we have 3 or 4 young people who are full-time students, right? And so they have to work around that.
And if someone doesn't know the play as you and I do, describe what is Brighton Beach Memoirs?
No, Brighton Beach Memoirs is about a Jewish family in Brighton Beach, Brooklyn, New York, in 1938, and it's about the relationship that forms when the matriarch of the family has her sister and her 2 children come live with them because her sister's husband passed away very young. And so it's in this house with a mother, a father, and 2 sons comes another mother and 2 daughters. And it's about how they deal with each other, the everyday life that they confront. And then because it's 1938, we're starting to find out what's happening in the world and what's happening in Europe and how the Jews are affected and how does that affect what's happening in this home in Brooklyn, New York.
And in some ways, it's been conjectured or hinted that it might be sort of a family history of the playwrights.
Right. As a matter of fact, Neil Simon wrote 2 other plays after this, and it's a trilogy. The first one, Brighton Beach, is about his semi-autographical life growing up in Brooklyn. The second one is called Biloxi Blues, and that's about his time in the service in the Army and about how he was first confronted with anti-Semitism. And then the third one is called Broadway Bound, and that's when he was writing his first show for Broadway.
Since it is part of a trilogy, does this mean that you're going to be pitching the other 2 to be able to do them?
Funny you should ask that, Eden. That's my goal. So within the next 5 years, the Evergreen Players are going to do the full trilogy, and hopefully I'll get to direct all 3.
Well, I can't wait to come and see it, and I can't wait to meet the cast.
Great. Well, here they are.
Thank you.
And now the cast of the Evergreen Players production of Brighton Beach Memoirs.
This kind of family is so different from the kind of families that live here in Colorado. What is it like to sort of breathe life into this family for a Colorado audience?
I mean, the relevance of this play is, I think, that just that it's about family. It's just about the love-hate relationship that exists in it. But, you know, just there's a lot of family issues in the play. It's about love and trust and selfishness and selflessness, and so, you know, compared to a lot of contemporary plays, you can really tell this is from another era of playwriting, but I think it's still moving.
I want each of you to take a moment and tell me some little piece about your character. Give me a little insight into your character.
My character is 42, and it's just amazing to me at 42 that he's so beaten down and tired and struggling so much just because of the circumstances of coming out of the Depression and taking care of his family as well as the extended family, and so much weight of the world kind of on him.
In many ways, your character is facing contemporary issues.
Very much so.
And tell me a little bit about your character.
I think with Kate, the way she's written and what you see on paper is that she's very hard, not a lot of love on the surface for her children.
When we first meet her, it's a little harder to like her.
Yeah, oh yes, absolutely. And so getting exposed to this character of, okay, she's very hard, she's crass, she's yelling a lot. How do I make that a likable character? Because I don't want people coming away saying, oh, Kate was not a nice person. But I think on the inside, Kate is very loving, and she just wants to keep this family together, and will do absolutely everything she can to keep it together.
We're going to jump over to you. Tell me about your character.
Sure. I play Blanche, and Blanche is Kate's younger sister.
Notice how she put the emphasis on that word younger.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah, I know that. That's okay.
I find a lot of similarities between myself and Blanche. Blanche is raising 2 children on her own. I've been a single parent for a long time. She is striving to find some kind of independence, but has a beautiful bond with family, with her sister. And through the play, we really see her turn into more of an independent woman, someone who's willing to stick up for herself, for her family, and find, I think, self-worth through the process. So it's been really freeing for me as well.
We're going to jump up here and have you tell me a little bit about your character.
I found my character really easy to play because she's 16.5 years old, just like me, and she's a dancer, and she's never home because she's always out with friends, and she always wants everything her way. And that's basically just me, so I found it was really easy.
So she's also a very contemporary young woman.
Yes, I guess, yes.
And you, sir?
I would say that Stanley is most like me in that I have a really great relationship with my father. He's been a really good role model for me, and then we differ a lot because he's growing up in a very poor family with a lot of pressure on him because he's 18 years old, and you know, back then it wasn't expected that everyone would go to college, but because of their circumstances, he had some doors closed on him, and so there's a lot of pressure on him because of money, and he feels a lot of pressure to please Jack, because Jack is a very hard worker and a good father, and so there you go.
And you, ma'am?
Well, I play Lori, and she is very, she's like very calm, unlike me. She has heart flutters, so she's sick, and
she's sort of delicate in many ways.
And like she has a great relationship with anyone. Everyone thinks she's such an angel, but she's like always really harsh to Eugene because they're cousins. But
why is she so harsh to Eugene?
I guess because maybe she played a lot of sports when she was littler, but then she got sick, and now he plays a lot of sports. So I think she may be jealous.
A little envious. You said she's not like you. What?
No.
What are you like that?
I am, ask anyone I know, I'm like really, really energetic and hyper, and she is like calm and like doesn't get angry at anyone or anything, and that was really, really hard because I'm hyper.
Yeah. And tell me about Eugene.
Well, Eugene is a sort of character that I had to kind of work on because we don't have too many similarities. He plays baseball, I don't. He yells at his mom and fights with his mom, which I don't do that often. But I think that I can relate to him in some instances because my family is going through troubles and his family is going through troubles, so yeah.
Do you think you'd be friends with Eugene?
No.
No?
No.
Well, I know that you have so much more work to finish up because the opening is almost here. And I'm excited to come and see. The first time I come to the Evergreen Players will be to see you in Brighton Beach Memoirs. Thanks for making time for me today.
Thank you.
For more information about Evergreen Players, visit their webpage at evergreenplayers.org and get your tickets for Brighton Beach Memoirs. Next week, we'll visit the amazing cast of the Denver Center Theater Company's hilarious production, American Night. We also make our first visit to Opera Colorado as they prepare for a brand new production, Sideshow, presented at the Loft Theater at the Ellie Calkins Opera House.
That's all for this edition. Remember to join us on Facebook and Twitter. With all that Colorado has to offer, we're here to help you keep it in focus. Thanks for watching. Good night.